You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Termina هناك لشوارشتايجر
Va a pegarle Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
And welcome to Soccer Today. Duane, it's a tough week when you know that our first show that we actually pull off on time is Thursday.
Yeah, I know, Kevin. I was going to start actually. I was waiting for the music to come out there, but you jumped in. So then I didn't tell you I was going to do this. So that's all good. So I was going to start by doing this. It's the clown music. Anyway, how you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing pretty good, Duane. It was a quite interesting Canadian Championship yesterday. Again, it's always great game. There's always like controversy. There's always some emotion, yes. But last night, emotions, big injury, like Daniel Levitt's injury, Duane. Apparently the gash was like the size of, like, yes, it was exaggerating, but it was disgusting. And that was the word used by Mauro Biello and other players. Like the size of is like I don't know how to say, like the circumference of a cup or something. Imagine on his knee. Like the amount of blood was quite impressive, apparently. And it was quite an injury by Daniel Levitt last night.
Yeah, I guess maybe we should start there and go with that, because that would be the talking point from the game, certainly after the fact. I haven't seen the injury, but it does certainly sound like it was pretty bad. At the time it happened, he was on the floor, grabbing his leg and waving for support. But I don't know if it was that obvious that it was that bad on the pitch, and that's the problem that we're having with this, and that's the ambiguous nature of this idea of when you stop play, and this is where
he didn't help himself by not overreacting, right? He was in pain. He was like almost in shock. He was there holding it, just lifting his right hand without moving the rest of his body, his face towards the pitch, in like it was like kneeled, but his face towards the pitch, holding his knee at the same time, raising his hand, but not like flopping around, not waving his arm around like he just got shot or something. He was like acting normally and not necessarily putting more mustard on it.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with the pragmatic stuff. And there was lots of conversation that was going on last night on Twitter and other places about actually what was playing out there. Now, for those that don't know, if you're listening outside of Canada and you didn't see this game, what happened is that Daniel Levitt went down with an injury just outside the box. TFC had possession of the ball in a very good attacking position. They continued to attack. Ultimately, they did end up scoring on that play while Lovitz was on the ground. So they scored with a man down. And this, of course, has caused a lot of people to feel aggrieved by this, in the sense that they felt that either the referee should have blown the play dead because the player was injured, or failing that, B, Toronto should have played it out of play purposely as the quote unquote sporting thing to do. That's the play that we're talking about here right now. Now, the conversations last night on Twitter, I would say, swung, and keeping in mind that my feed, although it does have a significant amount of Montreal focus to it, it is still a majority of Toronto fans. So that is the bias of my feed. But it still was probably about 80% suggesting that Toronto was not in the wrong, that they should have continued playing, and that it was the referee that made the mistake in this play.
That was my reaction live. When it was happening, I was not like people in the stands and on the press box. My feeling and my reaction was, look, the referee Petrescu needs to stop the play. Levinson's actually, because he was in the play too. That's the thing. It's not like if it happened at the other side of the field and he was out of the actual run of play. He was literally an obstacle to the play when he was on the pitch injured. So you would have thought that the referee would have stopped the play at that point. but he didn't because the ball was basically in the box. So it's a convoluted play. It's a more complex play. It's a cup final. It's all those things that goes through your mind. Like, okay, so we're not going to kick it out. Would they kick it out for us? Right. So that feeling. So it's the onus of the play being stopped is on the referee. And Petrescu last night did not make a decision for the benefit of the health or the injury of Daniel Lovitz, but it did benefit Toronto because of the chaos that it created. People were distracted. They were seeing and hearing their teammates in pain, not necessarily being 100% involved in the play. The ball bounces. Altidore gets the ball close to the box, kind of in the box. What's going to happen? They scored.
Yeah, look, I think it is first things first. If this had happened 10 years ago, I think that there would be a much greater call against Toronto in this case, because 10 years ago, there was this sort of automatic expectation that if a player went down, that the ball got played out. Now, unfortunately, there's a bit of a boy who cried wolf thing that happened here, and that players were going down in order to try and benefit themselves. And that, as I said, if you know the fable, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, and I think most of us do, eventually the actual wolf is happening and the players are going, screw you, you're trying to fake me out again, and they don't get the benefit of the doubt in that case. And I think what's led to that, I'm not saying Daniel Lovitz was in any means faking this or in any part of of causing the situation that created this. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with what you were saying.
Okay, yeah.
I understand that you don't mean Lovitz particulars, but it's like the opposite for Lovitz. But in general, over the last 20 years, the amount of diving led to a feeling of, you know what, we don't even know if you're right or if you're actually injured or just faking it.
Yeah, so exactly. So what's happened in the past 5 or 6 years is there's been this real push towards don't play it out. And you hear that, play to the whistle. It's the referee's call. It should not be on the players to make that choice on the pitch. And I believe that very strongly. And if you think about this, and if you're a Montreal fan out there that's frustrated by this, I get it. I'd be frustrated in the same scenario, but take a step back and think about it from the opposite perspective. If it was, I don't know, Stephen Beitashour down in the box in Montreal was in that position too, I think you probably would have rightfully continued to attack as well. And this is the one issue that I will take with Montreal's reaction. And it's the only way is Biello after the game said he was quote unquote disappointed with Toronto. And I think that maybe that might have been the emotion of the moment, because I really have a strong feeling in my mind that Montreal would not have reacted any differently. It was a bizarre play.
Duane, true. But by saying that he's disappointed in Toronto, he's not going to get a fine. By saying he's disappointed about Petrescu's no call there, he might get a fine. There's a difference there too, where he cannot necessarily be open about his sentiment and how he feels about the reactions of a referee of a certain play in the open, because, well, it's not necessarily allowed, and you can't criticize referees openly when you're in the head coach in a professional team, and you have your back channels to do so, but it has to be done internally. So there's that aspect to it too, that Mauro Biello can't just come out at the end of the game and say like, oh, Petrescu did a bad job, didn't call that, and he didn't blow the whistle dead when Lovitz was injured. He kind of not allowed to.
Yeah. And look, I mean, Lovitz used to be a teammate of a lot of those Toronto guys, so it's not like they wouldn't have been.
Sorry, Duane, Raheem Edwards and Jordan Hamilton were saying they were calling him Danny. Like, they knew the situation and they felt bad about it. But all is fair in war, no? All is fair in love and war, they say.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I'm just getting that. Like, it's not like there was any mean-spiritedness about this. No one wanted to see him hurt. And hopefully it's a laceration. I want to say contusion. That's a bruise, Duane. That's why I didn't go to medical school. I'm mixing bruises and cuts up.
It's a pretty big gash.
That's why I didn't go to medical school.
Yeah, like that's the only reason. There was a big gash on his right knee, and he had some stitches done to close the wound, and hopefully he's okay for Saturday. Duane, let's talk about more of the actual game. You know what I was impressed by? And I have to say, we're good with hyperboles, right? We're good by saying this was the best of all time. But those two lineups, like this final of the Canadian Championship, at least the first leg, the way it was managed by the head coach, feels important. At least the lineups will tell us that both clubs want to win it.
I was okay. Michael Bradley suspended for MLS play on Friday, so we knew he'd start. But to see Josie out there as well, to see both Vasquez and Javinko on the bench not starting, that didn't surprise us. But the fact that they both got in later on suggests the importance of this game to both of these clubs, and certainly Montreal's lineup. Piatti's out there, like this was not a early round U.S. Open Cup game. This was, and in fairness to the U.S. Open Cup, if it was the final, which this is, the final of the Voyageurs Cup, you would see pretty close to full first team lineups out there for the MLS teams, generally MLS teams, with apologies to Miami if you're thinking you might be able to get there in that final as well. So yeah, absolutely. And it immediately felt like a playoff game again. And that's what we said all along. That's what makes the great thing about this short little sprint tournament is it feels like you're getting a little taste of the playoffs in the middle of the season. The intensity was there, like that when Josie got bulldozed out of the play by Dundell, and then Josie knocked Dundell down again.
And then they started chirping for about 40 seconds. They was still going, and Donadell was trying to get the ball, put it down. Josie was mouthing. Donadell was mouthing. They were like face to face at a moment. I wish I was close enough to take a picture and put like a tail of the tape, so you can see like 6'3" Josie out the door, 200 and something pounds versus Donadell, 5'11", 145 pounds, all wet, both jawing one in front of the other. It was like it's a rivalry, and it was good to see everybody from Toronto, to see the Molinarios, the James Grossi, the Kurt Larson coming to Toronto. Like, it's a fun time. Actually, you know what? Early during the day, I was thinking yesterday, like, they play each other too often. It's just another game. I don't even feel excited. At the stadium, it was quite a fun game.
Yeah, no, I think I think Laura Armstrong was there as well. So I think most of the Laura's not exactly a true beat writer anymore since she's covering the Blue Jays, but certainly she does cover them for the Stars. So yeah, I think that every paper had someone there from Toronto, which would suggest you both the proximity of it, but also that that playoff series last year sort of it piqued the interest of more than the hardcore, and in the past you would have only had the hardcore. I went to watch the game at the world famous Scallywags. I'm just going to call it the world famous Scallywags from now on. I think I talked about it enough yesterday, and they actually had the sound up, and there were, although not everyone in the bar was watching it, there was a much greater sort of attention. Whereas in the past I would go to a place like that and it would be me and two other guys sitting at a bar watching. But yesterday there was a greater concentration of folks that showed up, and like I said, they put the sound up in the whole 9 yards. They treated it just like it was, a Leafs game or a Raptors game, and that's not something you saw in years past. And I think that's a testament to sort of what that playoff series did to make this part of the general sporting culture of this city, at least. I can't speak to Montreal moving forward. And I think that's something that we should value. Back to the game, though, before we'll talk a little bit more about rivalry in a second, and we'll push this segment as long as we need to, and then wrap with a little bit of Confederation Cup. It was a well-played game, I think, for the most part, very interesting tactically, and it's very much one of the things that makes Montreal-Toronto interesting and made that series so great last year was the fact that tactically they really match up. They both match up well against each other. Toronto's attack really is able to create great chances against the Montreal back line, but at the same time, the way Toronto bombs up, the way Toronto plays with the wingbacks, it really does expose them to Montreal's strengths as well, their counter strengths. And I certainly at the beginning of the game, I saw a lot of that where down the flanks, Montreal was really dangerous and creating a lot of chances. And I think that first 20 minutes of the game, TFC was probably lucky not to be down 2, at least at that point. They did end up allowing the goal, which was a keeping error, I think. And I think both goals were keeping errors.
Yes, both goals came, the one for Montreal when it came off Irwin. It was the one nice shot, though. That's the thing, right? It was a nice shot from far away from Donadell, and then the bounce back, and Mancos is there at the right place, right time to finish in basically an empty net. And Altidore, when he hits the ball, Crepeau gets a hand on it. He's kind of getting close to be in front of it. It's still a bit to his left, but he still puts 2 hands on it, but he can't control it, and the ball bounces in the net. Yeah, but outside of those 2 moments, Duane, I've been impressed by the keepers last night because both teams had shots from distance that were on target, on free kicks, close to the post as well. And both keepers came up big in this game, and this could have been a 3-3 type of game ended up only being 1-1. That's because of the two keepers last night.
No, precisely. When I said there were both goals were keeping errors, both goals were professional keeping errors, not like beer league keeping errors,
Yes.
right? Like
Yeah.
you would think that,
but not necessarily mistakes, because it happened. You can't be perfect all the time, but it's a rare mistake by okay, I know what you mean.
The Irwin goal, for instance, like ideally a professional keeper manages to punch that ball to the sides, right? Like that's what they'd be trained to do, but instead it went in front, which is dangerous, and Mancuso's right there, boom, it's in the goal. And the same with the Toronto's goal, it squeezes through his hands. It's a tough shot that's spinning. It even deflected a little bit, I think. So yeah, that's a really hard shot, but at the professional level, blah blah blah. At any rate, yeah, no, they both made some great saves later on in the game. Crepeau made the great save on that long sort of shot in about the 80th minute that seemed destined for the one side. And no good game by both. And look, as you said, the game was fitting of the quality of players that were put out there. Now, the one thing that I will mention, and I think we'll segue into this now, is that unfortunately, because it is the Canadian Championship, this game ends with only two Canadians on the pitch, only one of which started and only one of which was on the outfield position. Now, that's bad, but it's also, each of those substitutions made sense onto their own. Bernier doesn't maybe have 90-minute legs anymore, especially when they're playing a couple times in the week. Zario often comes off for in that situation, or comes on for Vasquez, depending on the circumstances in the game. Raheem Edwards coming off at the end. I think Raheem Edwards played a major contribution in this game. In fact, he had the assist on Josie's goal, winning a header against two bigger men, which is something that was nice to see.
People were saying that Savani has something against Canada, taking out two Canadian players at once. Like, come on, both of you out, Hamilton and Edwards. But no, I'm just saying, and that's kind of funny because both those two players I had a chance to talk to. So on Off the Woodworks post-game show that will be out just after this show, you can listen to Raheem Edwards and to Jordan Hamilton on the Toronto side, Cal Fisher, Chris Duval, and Mauro Biello and Greg Vanney. So that'll be an interesting show coming out just maybe in an hour or so.
All right, let's take a quick break, Kevin. We'll come back. We'll wrap up with a little bit of talk about the rivalry real quickly, like the fan aspect in that, and then we'll go into a little bit of non-Voyageurs Cup talk to end the show.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
Kevin, I don't know if you remember this, but back when I was in high school, there was always this one kid.
No, I don't remember this.
Okay, fair enough. Well, you wouldn't remember when I was in high school, but back when I was in high school, there was always this one kid that that would take a joke and he would keep on with the joke months and months and months after it stopped being a joke. So, for instance, let's say I wore a pink shirt to school one day, and for the next 2 weeks, everyone called me Pinky or Pink Shirt or whatever.
Well, you were Pinky for this guy for like 2 years.
Yeah. This is kind of what I get about the clowns thing right now. And I'm wondering whether it's time. Like, I'm not offended by it. It doesn't bother me. I think it's kind of silly. And there were people on my feed last night from outside Toronto going, explain the clowns. I don't get it, because no one does anymore. Montreal guys, no one does. So tell me about the clowns.
I don't know. Just because it's a word that starts with C, and it can be their C in TFC, and it's a way it's become a nickname for some Montreal supporters from Toronto. So I don't know. It's like they're.
So it's like we're Pinky.
Yeah, pretty much. No, it's more like the joke is not for everybody else. It's for them. So they're having fun with it. Why not? Do everybody else have to get it? Not really either. So.
All right, so it's not offensive. All right,
it's not really. Well, I don't know. Do you like clowns? Nobody really likes clowns anymore. So I guess that's where it comes from. It's just like, in their point of view, nobody likes TFC, so they kind of like the clowns. So nobody likes them. So basically, nobody likes clowns. But it's their point of view, and it's better than putting banners with offensive words.
Yeah. Quick thought on that one. All the offensive banners that have hung in Montreal Toronto games, this one's pretty tame. It's just kind of lame. It's not tame, it's lame. It's yeah.
Oh, it's offensive language, and in our PG society, it might not have a place.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting that it's still made like live TV and everywhere. But there was
Yeah.
another banner on top. Nobody paid attention to that one. I kind of like the other banner from 1642. It was just like 1642 has a little more like fun, more levity to their supporters culture, and there was a banner that had an arrow pointing to the Toronto support section with like "I'm with stupid" shirt. So it's kind of a little bit more levity.
There you
Without
go. Yeah,
letting,
well, that's fine. Yeah,
yeah.
it's. I mean, they're poking fun a little bit there. No, for sure. And look, I quickly on that one. I'll give you my quick thoughts on it. Real thought. This is why, as soon as I saw it, for those that don't know, there was a banner that said in French something like "We say what others are afraid to say." I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then
I think you're correct.
And then the English said "fuck Toronto." That one I understood. That was pretty universal. The bottom part of it, at any rate. So
Could have said expletive, but fine.
Yeah,
PG show.
I am. I am not a crude. I am not offended by the word "fuck." I am not offended by, ultras saying "fuck Toronto." I'm not even offended by people in Montreal that don't like Toronto, because there are many, I'm sure. There are many that have always made me feel welcome there. So it's whatever. That's the world is the world. But what I do get sort of upset about when I see a banner like that make live television is, oh, good, now we're going to have to defend the sport again. And this is why I think anyone who's in that culture that makes tifos and that has to sometimes have someone, they have to have an adult in the room. I mean, I know they're all adults, but an actual adult in the room sometimes going, you know what? Maybe this is something that we say to ourselves, but don't put on a banner that's going to be displayed on TV. And some of the ultras were tripping at me on Twitter this morning going, well, we didn't make it for TV. And I'm like, it's a televised game, you morons. At any rate, so just consider the overall state of the game sometimes. And
you could tell it wasn't made for TV though. Like, it's not like they spent like $10,000 making a intricate tifo that out of like with a big message. Then there's a big explosion and comes out the words "fuck Toronto." No, it's more like just white paper. Fuck Toronto.
Yeah, they spray painted it on something like that. I would question how that got into the stadium, but that's another story altogether. That
will probably, but that continues. That I think that will probably spur more sanctions when it's for Canada Championship games now because of that banner. There will probably be ramifications, and it's again that eternal cycle of the supporters culture that continues, and we just like the atmosphere. So
be witty.
Yeah,
if you're witty, everyone's going to laugh at them. Even if it's against you, you will always have a bit of a laugh if you're witty. If you're just crude, it's like, come on, this isn't grade school. Be better. That's my message. At any rate, we'll move on from it, though. And I hope no one in Toronto feels the need to write "fuck Montreal" next week. Let's just leave it at that.
I'll write the French version at least.
Yeah,
that would actually be like coherent. They'd be like, okay, we got what you were doing, but we're gonna do something. Yeah, So
and I appreciate that. Toronto fans chant "Tic Tac Tabernacle." Who the fuck's the Impact? Which is actually a reference to Tic Tac. That I don't know. Does Tic Tac still exist?
Tactic. It's Tactic. His name.
Yeah, I know, but they read it wrong in the time, so they say Tic Tac. That's the reference.
It's not my fault if you guys can't read.
Well, they probably were very drunk. It was the day of the 6-1 game.
You're not helping your cause here. You're just like digging a hole.
I know it's crude, and you know what? I know that this maybe is even inconsistent. I don't have an issue with chanting things have swear words in them, but don't put them on a banner because you could take a picture of that. If
exactly.
You can put it on the internet.
You can't prove a chant if you're not recording it. It's easy to screen grab a banner.
At any rate. Although I will say, at least the Toronto fans do try to be bilingual in their chants against Montreal. That's always how I've defended the Tic Tac chant. But at any rate, all right, let's move on from that. It was kind of fun. It's always fun to have a few chirps here and there. The Twitter was I actually had to put my phone down last night because people that I would consider friends on Twitter, they're Montreal, were kind of snipping at each other. I'm going, you know what? I'm just going to put my phone down now, and that's what I think a rivalry game does. All right, Kevin, let's move past this and just sort of end, I guess, with thoughts on the second leg. I mean, both teams playing. So Montreal does play on the weekend, right? I haven't looked at the schedule on the weekend yet.
Saturday in Columbus, so at least the travel won't be too bad.
All right,
Toronto, there's no travel, so it's pretty easy. Just go home. But they are playing Friday.
Yeah, so I expect similar lineups out on two.
No.
Either, you know,
I expect Toronto to put like their D squad in, and that was the feeling with a few Toronto journalists last night too. And I expect Montreal to actually play probably Chris Duval like the most they can because he won't be available on Tuesday, and other players. One Gila Five was surprisingly not surprisingly. We haven't seen him a lot this year due to injury and not being in a preferred lineup lately because he's back, just getting back to fitness and form. So I was surprised by a lot of the Five play. So I'm now with the injury to Lovitz. Hopefully he's ready for the weekend. If not, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Five play more. So yeah, I do expect very different lineups for Montreal and for Toronto this weekend.
Yeah, look, here's the thing: because Toronto has 32 points on the board, they can't afford to lose a game, or even if it's at home, they can afford to draw the game. They might even feel confident that they could put a lineup out there that could get a draw out of that and be happy with it, because if they lose points, it's not, you know, you never want to, especially at home, but they have so many points on the board right now that even a loss isn't even really going to hurt them on a supporter shield level.
Who is it? RSL, I think.
No, they're playing New England.
New England. Oh, so, it's New England. Like, Toronto can probably beat New England with the team they put against Ottawa.
Well, maybe not. They lost to New England a lot, but anyway, no. Yes. I think they also believe in their depth. So I think you'll see guys like Jay Chapman and that will play for sure, and that's an opportunity for them. And I think that's really how you have to look at this if you're a Toronto fan. You know, when the lineup comes out, there'll be mumblings like, "Oh, why didn't you try and play every game?" But no. Win this game, you know, they got the result in Montreal that I think that they're probably happy with. They got the away goal. So, you know, the conventional wisdom says that they have a slight advantage heading into their home leg. So, you know, you move on and I think you try and you look at the kids you're going to put in and you look at those players and you go, well, you've been waiting for a chance, prove it, and you go from there. All right, Kevin, with a few minutes left, we're already at 10:30. We're going to only do a half hour, but we can push for a little bit longer. Confederations Cup. I thought that actually that second half of Mexico-New Zealand last night, that was one of the first most compelling moments of the tournament that we've had so far. And we've got a great game coming up this afternoon that I am going to make a point of going out and watch. That would be Chile and Germany, which I think is the game of the tournament so far. We have Simon Fudge on the tournament on for tomorrow. What are you going to ask Simon? You know, let's preview the interview a little bit. What has grabbed you about this tournament?
Well, seems to me like the quote-unquote underdogs gave the run for the money to the big teams so far. Like, just go to Russia-Portugal yesterday. Just finished 1-0 on a Ronaldo header. Russia made it difficult. Russia had their chances in the second half especially. And I don't know if it's indicative of anything, if it's maybe teams, some of them taking this tournament lightly, some of them not. But I don't know. Even New Zealand, Mexico. Like, New Zealand did not roll over. Like, it wasn't a blowout like we could expect. And I think the underdogs are performing better. And maybe the top teams are enjoying themselves maybe a little bit too much. And that means that everybody kind of meets themselves in the middle. And we see close games. And I'm surprised by the close games in Confederations Cup in 2017 compared to what we could have expected when we see Portugal on paper versus a Russia.
Yeah, precisely. And look, Germany is a really interesting team too for me as well in this tournament, because they brought a very young team, and it's sort of a testament to the depth of the German system right now and how much success that they are having. So it's interesting to watch that play out as well. You know, having watched this tournament so far right there, I'm going to go out not on a very very long limb, but I think you implied yesterday when we talked about this, or 2 days ago, I forgot when it was. Portugal might be the favorite right now, even though they haven't had spectacular results. They're sort of grinding results again. They look like they'll be in the knockout stage. They have Ronaldo. You look at Chile's a little hard to predict in these international tournaments. Germany's young. I don't think, you know, Russia, New Zealand, Australia, teams like that, Cameroon, are necessarily going to be true contenders to win. But
just to add to Ronaldo, Duane, what's more dangerous than an angry and peed off Ronaldo at the club level because of financial situation and justice situation? He has one place where he can express that, and it's on the soccer pitch. First of all, I would not want to play against a Ronaldo ever, but playing against a angry and wanting to prove a point Ronaldo, yeah, that's why they're dangerous in this tournament.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I do have to get to the bank, and I do want to watch both those Confederation Cup games today. So I'm going to wrap it now. Kevin, before we go, though, I am going to just quickly point any Canadian fans that are in the Toronto area or looking to travel to Toronto in September to watch Canada versus Jamaica. The Voyageurs Cup ticket, or the Voyageurs tickets, I can't talk right now. The Voyageurs tickets went on sale yesterday. You don't buy them through Ticketmaster. Buy